All right, and welcome to the Monday Injury Report. It is Monday, December 21st. Only 4 days till Christmas.
Woo!
Woo-hoo-hoo. As you can see, I'm festive.
Yeah, you are.
Quite the shirt on. Got
Very
the
nice.
tree in the background. I got an elf, going across the living room.
We won't talk about what kind of pants you have on. We don't want inappropriate for today.
Work from home, business up top, party down below. I am joined, as always, by Dr. Mark Casimiro. What's up, Mark?
Not much. That sound, if you listen closely, that sound is my fantasy football league going in the toilet. First place, one and done in the playoffs.
Rough weekend. And who do you have to blame for that, Mark?
I mean, not just one guy, but Raheem Mostert really cost me. I should have taken my own advice and stayed away from him. And what are you going to do? I mean, the people I played, everyone on their team scored like at least 15 points, so it wouldn't have made a difference either anyway. So, fantasy football. It goes from you go from like feeling so great, like, man, I could be a GM in the NFL. I'm so good at this. And then the next week it's like, I know nothing. I know nothing, Jon Snow. I know nothing.
The highs and the lows. Yeah, I had a rough season, so I can't say too much. But what we can talk about is some guys that are injured, because you are an expert in injuries and how to recover from them. So let's just talk about those. Not who to start, not who to sit, not who to draft, but let's talk about some players who got a little dinged up this weekend. So let's talk about one that, unless you have the Patriots defense, he isn't a guy that you're going to be starting unless you do the IDP, which some leagues do. But let's talk about it. It was a little scary. Stephon Gilmore. Yeah. Reigning Defensive Player of the Year, Patriots' best player by far. Great shutdown corner. He goes down on a non-contact injury and immediately reaches for that knee. Now the Patriots, their season's over, which they only have 2 games left, but they're not going to make the playoffs. So I'm no expert here, but I'm going to say he's probably not going to play the next 2 games, seeing it doesn't matter. And he did something yesterday, but from what I'm hearing, I saw that Ian Rappaport was saying it too, is that it's not as serious as it looked. When you hear that, it's not as serious as it looked, my mind always goes to, okay, well, maybe he won't need surgery, or maybe he won't miss time next year, even if he's going to miss some time this year, like I said, in 2 meaningless games. When you hear it's not as serious as it looks, what's your first thought when you originally thought maybe it was going to be some sort of ligament in the knee, and now they're saying not as serious as it looks?
Yeah, I think when they say that, they're telling you that they don't think it's the ACL, or they ruled out an ACL injury. When he went down, I saw it live and I said, that looks like an ACL injury. The way he went down, the way he grabbed at his knee, non-contact injury. So that's what they're talking about. So when they say it's not as serious as they once thought, they probably thought it was an ACL injury. And then maybe they got some imaging done or something like that, and now they're thinking maybe it's not an ACL injury. So that goes from a guy being out a year and a half to maybe being out a couple months or a couple weeks. So that's a big thing. I do agree with you. I do not think he's going to play the rest of the year. I think he's done the rest of the year, and I'm still a little skeptical. I think more information might come out. You had mentioned, we had talked about there being like fancy words. Let me put on my fancy glasses here. Tibial femoral subluxation. So in layman's terms, what that means is you have 2 bones in your lower leg below the knee. You have your tibia, which is your shin bone, and that's like the big weight-bearing bone. You have your fibula, which is your bone off to the side that doesn't really bear weight. That's, if everyone remembers Michael Vick, he broke his fibula a couple years ago in the preseason and was able to play like 6 weeks later. That's not as serious of an injury. But where those 2 bones meet, there's a joint close to your knee. And that can sublux, obviously, like any other joint. There's ligaments on top of it. My only concern is when that subluxes, sometimes there is an underlying ACL tear, like a partial tear in there. So I wonder if there's more information that's going to come out, but I don't think it makes a difference because the Patriots aren't going to the playoffs. And I definitely think that he's going to probably sit down these next 2 weeks regardless.
So beyond these next 2 weeks, I know you probably need some more information to come out, but if I just, had to ask you yes or no, do you think he misses time next year too?
If it's an ACL injury, then yes. If it's not an ACL injury, if it's something a different ligament, or maybe it is just that subluxation, then no. But if it's an ACL injury, then yes, he's going to miss time next year. He'll probably be back next, October, November, sometime around there, and then We talk about all the time. It's going to take a couple weeks for him to get comfortable on that knee again, especially being a defensive back where he's got to make plays on the ball and come out of his breaks and do a lot of cutting and change direction. So that'll take a little bit of time for him to get comfortable if it is an ACL. We don't know what it is, but if it is.
We'll have to keep an eye on that. If any more information comes out about it too, I'm sure you and I will follow up and talk about it on the next episode. So let's talk about some guys that may or may not have helped your fantasy chances at winning a championship this past weekend. The first one is Stefon Digg.
Mm-hmm.
So he leaves the game on a cart. They're looking at that foot. The Bills end up winning the AFC East, so they're back out there. And they're dancing, and he's there dancing, but he's, hopping on one foot. Kind of nerve-wracking if you're a Bills fan or a Stefon Diggs is on your fantasy squad. But from what I'm hearing, him being pulled from the game and not going back in was more because they were blowing out the other team, more than him, more than the chance of him furthering that injury. So what are your thoughts on his foot? And if you are going into the championship weekend next week for fantasy, and you've been riding Stefon Diggs all year, is he going to be there for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, as far as I read, I saw that reports that after the game he was in the locker room dancing with his teammates and celebrating. There was no reports, as far as I saw, that he was in a walking boot or something like that when he left the stadium yesterday or last night or Saturday, I should say, when they played. So that's a good sign. If it was anything serious, you would think that they would put him in a walking boot right away just to kind of decrease some of the inflammation and swelling and, start that healing process up as quickly as possible. So all that's good information. Now, having said that, a wide receiver, going into a game with some type of foot injury is not ideal, especially when he's a big part of the offense like Stefon Diggs is. It could be anything from like a foot sprain, like that Liz Frank injury that we've talked about in the past, to a turf toe type injury, which we've talked about with Antonio Gibson in the past couple weeks. It could be just maybe he had something like plantar fasciitis and that got exacerbated by a certain play or a certain move that he made. So we don't really have any information right now. We'll have to keep an eye on it, but all signs point to that they dodged a bullet. I do wonder if they're going to play him next week. They clinched the AFC East. Maybe they want to rest him and make sure that he's as close to 100% going in the playoffs, but we won't have that information until later on this week. I think if we get the information that he's going to play, then I think if you've had him and he's going to play, then I think it's safe to say that you can ride with him. But obviously we'll have to wait till Thursday, Friday, see if he's practicing, see if anyone sees him in a boot or anything like that, and seeing how he moves on the field if he is in practice. So I'll have to wait and see kind of how that goes. How's that for sitting on the fence and not really providing any information?
I mean, that offense has looked so explosive. Josh Allen's looked really, really good. So, this is his first year in Buffalo, but he has been exactly what they needed. So the fact that they clinch a playoff spot, clinch the AFC East, that's really where, I'm worried about it more than, how much that foot is hurting him. I mean, it kind of looks like the Chiefs are going to lock up that 1 seed in the bye. So, besides that, it's really just a little bit of seeding and some home field advantage, throughout the playoffs.
Right.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I will say at this time of year too, there's probably a lot of gamesmanship going on between, every team's looking for an advantage. So no one wants to let the other team know that their star wide receiver is going to be out for a foreseeable future. So you tell everyone, no, he's fine. He's going to play. It's going to be great. And then maybe you have him out there as a decoy or something like that, So it's kind of hard to say exactly. We'll have to wait and see. He's probably going to get more scans done today and more testing done today. And then hopefully we'll hear by Wednesday, Thursday, some more information about it and see how he's doing. You get the true test if he practices. If he practices Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, then probably good to go. If he has to miss time Wednesday, Thursday, and or Friday, then it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge on Sunday to know what's going to happen.
All right, so keep an eye out. And if anything comes out later in the week, Dr. Mark and I are always open to do a later in the week one, even though this Thursday and Friday is Christmas Eve and Christmas. But, the injury report never sleeps. So.
That's right. Injuries don't stop, so we don't stop, Nick,
All right. The last guy I have for you today is on the team I was just talking about, and that's the Chiefs and running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So, like I alluded to earlier, most likely they're going to have the first round bye. Yeah. They have 2 games left he's definitely shut down for the rest of the regular season. So you add those 2 games, then the bye week. Now we're talking about 4 weeks from now, them having a game. They also have Le'Veon Bell now. So fantasy-wise, he's done. But how about actually, if you're a Chiefs fan, you're rooting for this team. This guy, is their high draft pick, a rookie out of LSU. He's looked good this year. Do you think he will be back for that conference championship weekend, or do you think maybe if they advance on, it'd be more like AFC championship, or maybe even waiting till the Super Bowl if they make it that far? Which, if I was a betting man, I would say they will.
So I think it might be close to the AFC championship game. I think high ankle sprains are tough, right? Especially for wide receivers. We've seen, we look at the 49ers. I think Jimmy Garoppolo was down with a high ankle sprain. I think that's what Raheem Mostert's been dealing with a lot on and off. In the past, we've seen Saquon Barkley last year have to miss time for that. That's a really hard injury to come back from. You can come back in 4 to 6 weeks, but you are certainly not anywhere close to 100%. And the chances that you're going to aggravate the injury and have to miss more time afterwards are pretty high, in my opinion. So I think that, you're probably not going to see him until something like the AFC Championship game. Like you said, he's going to be done for the rest of this regular season. They're going to have a bye. I think you sit him down one more week in that divisional round, and then you look for him to make a contribution in the AFC Championship game. I even think like when he does come back to the AFC Championship game, if he is able to play, he'll be on a snap count. They're only going to look for him like maybe 15 plays or something like that. You'll see how it goes, and then he has another 2 weeks off before the Super Bowl if they make it that far. So I think that's how they're going to manage it. I don't think that there should be any reason for concern for him going forward long term. I think it's just kind of bad luck right now that it happened, that this type of injury happened at the end of the year as opposed to the beginning of the year. At the beginning of the year, you can rest him. You can kind of work around that a little bit, make sure he's good to go towards the end of the year. But right now, you don't really have that option. So I would be surprised if we see him before the AFC title game.
Yeah, and the Chiefs have the luxury of even a dynamic player like him being like their fifth best option. With between Kelsey, Hill, Watkins, and now Le'Veon Bell too, and just Mahomes can do it both with his arms,
right,
and his leg. So
I have a fun tidbit about high ankle sprain. So we just talked about Stephon Gilmore with his tibial femoral subluxation.
Let's hear it.
We call in the biz, Nick, we call that the proximal tibial femoral joint, which is higher up.
Okay.
Right. So when we talk about high ankle sprains, we're actually talking about tibial femoral joint and the ligaments that connect those two bones, but down lower, closer to the ankle. And that's usually what makes it so much harder of a rehab because there's not a lot of good blood flow. Just the way that joint works and works, especially for a running back or a wide receiver, it's a lot harder to come back from. So full circle, we started with tibial femoral work and now we're ending with tibial femoral work,
We plan that too, 100%
yes.
Plan that, just, finishing right where we started. All right, Mark. Well, I appreciate your insight on, all these injuries I brought up. And then remember, everybody out there, if you have any questions or a player that we're not talking about that you're curious about, you have to put them in the comments down below. Whether you're watching this live or after the fact, put them down there. I go back and I check the comments to make sure, there's nobody that we missed. And if there is, we'll make sure to talk about that person next time. The next time I do see you, Mark, it's going to be after Christmas. So I just want to say Merry Christmas. I hope you have a great weekend, and a happy, healthy, safe Christmas.
Thank you very much, Nick. You too. I'm actually going to have to go out on my way home tonight and get a nice Christmas sweater like you and maybe do a little bit more decorating for my house. I feel a little ashamed. It's not as Christmassy on my end here, so I got a little work to do before Friday.
We started early this year. We needed as much Christmas spirit as we could get, in 2020. Looking forward to 2021. So as much any joy we could bring, we were trying to. There you go.
This is all we got over here. Our little Christmas Charlie Brown Christmas tree.
Hey, better than no Christmas tree. I love it.
Kind of full, little sap, a little full, but it'll work. Last great American family man, you Nick. The last great American family man.
I won't be putting in a swimming pool with my holiday bonus this year, so we'll see.
Come on, Michelle. We need a pool.
Well, everybody out there, same goes to you. I hope everybody has a happy, healthy, safe week and a and a very Merry Christmas. And thank you for joining us. And, we'll be here next week and to wrap up 2020 and hopefully looking forward to a brighter future and a better 2021. So thank you, Mark. Thank you, everybody out there. We'll see you next week.
Nice.
Peace.